and welcome to another exciting episode of Nerd Central. I'm Krista.
And I'm Channing. We have our next installment of Digital Dreams, Anime Academy, Taking a Bite, and Scary Movie 101.
Plus, we have a battle to see who is the best Batman. But before we go to the rest of the news, the Oscars were held just this past Sunday, and the winner of the biggest award of the night, Best Picture, was Channing. Envelope, please. Green Book. Be sure to check out next week's show for our full coverage of the event. Now, let's talk about the news of the week. It was only a matter of time until we learned the fates of the last two Marvel Netflix shows, and it seems things are as we feared. Jessica Jones and The Punisher have been canceled by the streaming service. That leaves no Marvel shows on Netflix other than the reruns of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Punisher had just debuted its second and apparent final season on January 18th. Jessica Jones is in post-production on their third season, and it will still be released on the service sometime later this year. There has been speculation that all the canceled Marvel shows will be revived on the Disney Plus streaming service or on Hulu. We will just have to wait and see.
We here at Nerd Central would like to thank the cast and crews of each show for your dedication in bringing these stories to the screen. Maybe one day the Defenders will make an appearance in an MCU film. One can only hope.
Netflix did not stop there. The streaming service canceled Friends from College after just 2 seasons. The series stars Keegan-Michael Key, Fred Savage, and Kobe Smulders as just a few of the friends on the cusp of their 40s living in New York. The second and final season debuted back on January 11th.
Now let's take it to Digital Dreams and Anime Academy.
Hello and welcome back to Digital Dreams. We're not done talking about the Digimon Adventure universe, but we are going to table that for now and move on to the third season of the show, Digimon Tamers. Tamers stands out to a lot of people because there was a strong emphasis on being real. The characters in the show were already familiar with Digimon as a franchise, commenting on characters from the first 2 seasons and being familiar with the card game or video games. They are then sought out by real Digimon partners through a rift between worlds. There's a government organization called Hypnos that tracks down wild Digimon in the real world. A kid gets to create his own Digimon, and they all have to be home in time for dinner. The show stays in the real world for some time, focusing on the kids hiding their partners from their friends and family, as well as the wild Digimon that slip through the barrier between worlds. There's also this little pipsqueak troublemaker named Impmon, and this cutie named Calamon that can cause Digivolution. Hypnos and the kids cross paths a few times, especially when 12 Digimon based on the Chinese zodiac called the Devas appear. The kids do eventually reveal their secret and travel to Digiworld, which is radically different from the one we're used to. The kids go through all sorts of trouble, including approaching gods, until they find out that humans and Digimon have a common enemy in this eldritch horror called the D-Reaper that wants to delete all life everywhere. This enemy scared the crap out of me as a kid. Some really unsettling stuff happens in this arc of the show. Also, they introduce this chick that's the daughter of one of the adult characters, and she's only in it for a couple episodes. You don't really know much about her, and then it turns out she's dead the whole time. This season is known for incorporating the cards from one of the card games as modifiers for battles, the merging of humans and Digimon into one being, and a magical card called the Blue Card. It's a pretty highly regarded season. I would probably peg it as the universal favorite. It certainly makes a good case for being the best. Part of that comes from screenwriter and Cthulhu mythos writer Chiaki Konaka, whose work is usually dark and psychological in nature. While the first 2 seasons did try to tackle more complicated themes like death, guilt, PTSD, depression, and divorce, they weren't central themes, and they were sometimes handled with kid gloves. Tamers makes an attempt to bring the party to you with relatable characters, a familiar world, and plenty of emotional exploration. Konaka even wrote a short story for adult fans called Digimon Tamers 1984 that dealt with the original programmers that discovered Digimon. Sometimes people that have trouble watching Adventure ask where they should start with Digimon, and the resounding answer is usually Tamers. I'd agree with that. Tamers is definitely the show that stays with me the most, and I think it probably holds up the best. It's not my absolute favorite season, but it's probably objectively the best season. That'll do it for Digital Dreams. Check back next week when we cover my least favorite season, Digimon Frontier. See you there.
Hello, I am Drew, and welcome to this week's segment of Anime Academy. This time I'm covering something that some may say is plaguing the recent set of seasonal anime, isekai shows. Isekai anime is a genre that got popular in around 2015 to 2016 and has been around since. The whole genre is about people being transported to another world, whether it's because they died or because they played a video game a lot or whatnot. It's often not important to the overall story. The world is often a fantasy setting and is conveniently like a video game, so it's easy to understand the world. The fact that the worlds are so similar to a video game is because the people who often write these stories are people who play a lot of video games and enjoy the mechanics of them. A lot of times they can be compared to D&D because of the terms that they use and the monsters that inhabit the world. This also makes writing these stories easier because often these are adapted from light novels, which are frequently written by novice writers. There are so many isekai shows that are not very good. They are frequently cheesy and have a boring main character and cast made from cardboard. But there are also many different shows that are genuinely good and entertaining, that are well written. An example of a good one is Overlord. In Overlord, a guy playing a VR MMO gets sucked into a different world after staying logged into the game after the server shut down. This show is a great example of a well-structured isekai anime. When the shows are well-structured and well-written, they can be some of the best shows out there. Re:Zero and Tanya the Evil are other great examples. These shows get a bad rap because of the abundance of how many there are and how they seem to be cash grabs. Don't let this deter you from them. The isekai genre has many gems that are worth the search. This was Drew with Anime Academy, and thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys. We are going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll have our next installments of Taking a Bite and Scary Movie 101. Stay with us. Welcome back to Nerd Central. Let's take it straight to Taking a Bite with Katie.
Good evening and welcome to Taking a Bite with me, Katie. Last week I put Shallows up against Bait and Bait was our winner. This week I will be putting Bait against The Reef. Who will come out on top? That's what we are going to find out. The Reef is about a group of friends who are traveling to Indonesia, and on their way there, they travel through the coral reef. On the second day, the yacht hits the coral reef and it capsizes. The group of friends are trying to figure out whether they should stay on the overturned boat or if they should swim to safety. One decides to stay on the boat and the other four decide to try to swim to Turtle Island. They assume that the island is about 12 miles away. During these 12 miles, they find the carcass of a sea turtle. The group then sees that there is a great white shark circling around them. At one point, one of them loses their bodyboard that helps them stay afloat. As they go to get it, the shark comes up and kills one of them. As night falls, the three survivors are once again stalked by the shark. As morning arrives, the survivors wake up and realize they have drifted to a shallow part of the reef. They see a rock and they frantically swim to it. The shark returns and kills another. The remaining two survivors, Luke and Kate, swim to the rock. As they get there, Luke tries to help Kate get on the rock. As he does this, the shark drags him underwater. The movie ends with an epilogue stating that the final survivor, Kate, was rescued by a fishing boat. What I like about this movie is that it's based off the true event of Ray Boundy. The best thing about this movie, though, is that the shark in it is real. No special effects, no CGI, just real wildlife. That is not something that happens in a lot of shark movies. I also enjoy the suspense of this movie. When watching this, you are constantly wondering when a shark is going to come up out of nowhere and just attack them. Now, with saying that, it does have its moments where everything looks the same. I mean, they're stuck in the middle of the ocean. Things really aren't going to change. It's going to be water and fish. That's about it. So I could see why some people wouldn't find it as entertaining. Also, I feel like at times this movie almost repeats itself. Now, I know that they're in the middle of the ocean, but we can only watch somebody climb on a rock to get away from a shark so many times, and I feel like it happens multiple times throughout this movie. Alright, it's that time again. It's time for this week's Shark Showdown, Bait versus the Reef. Bait won last week because of their storyline and the great acting. But will they be able to hold their own when it comes to real shark footage and a storyline that's based off of true events? Can I get a drum roll, please? This week's winner of the Shark Showdown is The Reef. I loved Bait's storyline, that won't change, but the fact that The Reef used real shark footage in their movie cannot go unnoticed. Next week on Taking a Bite, The Reef will be going up against Open Water for another Shark Showdown.
Thanks, Katie. Let's talk about some TV movie news. Psychos rejoice! The beloved USA Network show is getting another movie. The first movie debuted on the network in December of 2017 to generally favorable reviews.
The sequel will start production in March and will have Sean Spencer, Burton Guster, Chief of Police Karen Vick, and Detective Juliet O'Hara returning to Santa Barbara from San Francisco after Juliet's old partner and now Chief of Police Carlton Lassiter is ambushed and left for dead. While investigating, Sean and Gus will have to test their friendship. Will they prevail? We will just have to find out when Psych the Movie 2 will most likely hit our airwaves sometime this December.
Now let's take it to Scary Movie 101 with Bailey.
Hello and welcome back to Scary Movie 101. I'm your host, Bailey Ramsier, and this week we'll be looking at a spooky classic, Friday the 13th. In 1957, a young boy named Jason Voorhees drowned at Camp Crystal Lake. In the following year, 2 counselors were murdered. Flashing forward to 1979, a group of counselors decide to reopen camp with the owner of the facility. Annie, who is one of the counselors, was told that they were doomed for opening camp back up. Once Annie arrived at camp, she was chased through the woods and had her throat slit. In the beginning of the counselor's visit, there were some strange incidents that happened throughout, including someone pretending they were drowning and finding a snake in the bed. With the storm heading towards them, the owner Steve leaves camp to get supplies. 2 of the counselors, Marcy and Jack, head into the cabin, not realizing that one of their friends is dead in the cabin with them. Next, the killer attacks Jack when Marcy leaves to go to the bathroom. Marcy hears something and peeks out, only to turn back around and be murdered. That only leaves 3 counselors left. In the meanwhile, Steve had car troubles and was walking back to camp when he was murdered. Brenda and Bill are attacked in the same way and are left dead. Alice sees Bill dead and starts to run away, running into the mother of the boy who drowned. The mother tries to attack her, but somehow Alice escapes and ends up cutting her head off. She rows her canoe out into the middle of the lake and falls asleep. She awakes to her name being called and gets pulled into the lake by who she thinks is Jason, and wakes up in the hospital where she is told everyone at camp is dead. She tries to tell them that Jason attacked her, but the police tell her that they never found his body. I personally love this movie. It's a classic. It had great content with really great jump scares. On the scare scale, I'm giving this movie 6 heebie-jeebies out of 10. One thing that they could have done better was with the fight between Alice and Jason's mother. It was really cheesy, and I'm not talking Gouda cheese. The acting was really bad in this scene, and all around it could have been better. My favorite part of this movie would have had to been the part where Alice whacks the old bat with a frying pan. It's just a really odd thing to grab to defend yourself with. And that is my take on Friday the 13th. Thank you for joining us. Next week we will unmask the new Halloween movie. My name is Bailey Ramsier, and this was Scary Movie 101.
Thanks, Bailey. We have one more piece of news for you all, and it is an unfortunate one. Ben Affleck is no longer Batman. Affleck went on Jimmy Kimmel Live and confirmed what had been speculated for months. In a touching ceremony, Kimmel put Affleck's cape and cowl in the rafters where they will hang forever, or until Kimmel doesn't have a talk show anymore.
Matt Reeves, the director of the upcoming Batman solo film, has stated that his version of Batman will be much younger than Affleck. Fans knew that his run was coming to an end. We here at Nerd Central would like to thank Ben Affleck for the 2 films and 1 cameo you made as the Caped Crusader.
And on that note, that's going to do it from us. You can watch all of our previous episodes on the KNWT YouTube page.
You can also follow KNWT on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow Nerd Central at nerd_central_TV. With Ben Affleck finishing his run as the Caped Crusader, who is the best Batman? Let's kick it over to Devin Van Zant for Nerd Showdown to find out.
Thanks, girls. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerd Showdown, the part of Nerd Central where we battle it out on a particular topic we have no business debating. I'm your host, Devin Van Zant, and with the 80th birthday of Batman and Ben Affleck out as the character, we ask the question, who is the best Batman? Keep in mind, our fighters will be diving deep into Batman's backstory, so this is your spoiler warning. Let's introduce those fighters. First, I have the creator of Force Feeding and Dead on Arrival, Cody Nance. Cody, which Batman are you defending?
I will be defending the voice of Batman, Kevin Conroy.
And his opponent, I have Bearcat Update reporter Jacob Barnes. Jacob, which Batman have you chosen?
I will be defending Christian Bale in the Dark Knight trilogy.
When we come back, the showdown will commence. Welcome back to Nerd Showdown. Cody, are you ready?
I am.
Jacob, are you ready?
Yes.
Well, then let's showdown. Cody, why don't you start us off? Why do you think that Kevin Conroy is the best Batman performer?
Well, Kevin Conroy has been the voice of Batman for over 20 years now. If I listed every project he was a part of, that would be my entire argument. I wouldn't have time to list all of them. So, Kevin's voice has very theatrical gravitas to it. Anytime he speaks, you shut up and you listen because it demands your attention. And he's a brilliant detective in his portrayal of Batman throughout the years. Most of the animated series, he isn't fighting. It's mostly just him figuring out how to outsmart the villains, outwit them. And it really is a side of Batman we never really get to see in the films because they're so focused on the big action spectacle of him rather than the silent detective that he is. He's much more scary than any of the theatrical adaptations we've gotten. There's an episode of the animated series where Harley has him tied up and he knows he's going to get out of it, so he begins laughing. And it scares the crap out of Harley. Scared the crap out of little Cody too. And because you never heard him laugh before, and it was terrifying to see him slip to Joker's side of things.
All right, good. That's going to have to wrap it up. Jacob, Christian Bale, why do you think he's the best?
Coming from someone who's not really into animation or comics, I think I was never really into superheroes until I saw Batman Begins. And I think that Christopher Nolan's cinematic universe in general is just incredible, and the way that he presented Christian Bale as Batman was beautiful. And I think that Christian Bale is very raw, very gritty, and although people give him crap for his voice, I think that his voice kind of stands out, and people, like everyone, you've heard everyone imitate Christian Bale's version of the voice, which is really iconic. And I think it's easier to get into the Dark Knight trilogy for someone who's not as into comics or animation. And I think if you ask about anyone, I think today I was at lunch and I was asking people which Batman they identify as Batman. They said Christian Bale. So I think overall he's more well known to the general public.
All right, good argument. Cody, why do you think Christian Bale sucks?
Well, like you said, his voice is a bit weird for the interpretation of the character. It's almost laughable at times and makes it hard to understand him at points. Also, I understand that maybe the suit was hard to breathe in, but if Christian Bale could just close his mouth in one scene, that would make a lot of difference in showing facial emotion. He's not a very good detective either. His primary interrogation skill is repeatedly beating on the villain, whether it be Joker, Bane, or Scarecrow, and repeatedly screaming, "Where are they? Where is it? Where is she?" Things like that. So, and his fight choreography is not the best either. I understand that these were more crime dramas than action movies, but that's something you have to nail down for the Batman character.
All right, Jacob Barnes, what do you have to say about Kevin Conroy?
I don't know. I mean, Kevin Conroy, yes, he's very maybe sleek and detective-like, but when I think of a superhero, especially as a little kid, I would think of someone that just has this form of badassery, if you will. Someone who can just come in and just save the day and is just all around tough and gritty, as I mentioned earlier. I think that Christian Bale, when he comes in any scene, it's just epic as Batman. And about his voice, I don't think that, I think, you know, as Bruce Wayne, he's just this very well-known millionaire. He's got to change it up. He can't let people know who he was. So yeah, it's a little different, but I really enjoy the voice. I really enjoy Christian Bale, and I think that Kevin Conroy, although he may be, a better voice actor, certainly, and just more of a detective, I think when I think of the Batman, I want him to be, tough and in your face.
Cody, final chance, rip him apart.
When I read the Batman comics, there's only one voice that I can read them in, and that is Kevin Conroy. I have attempted to read them as Christian Bale when I was a kid. I didn't quite understand Kevin Conroy's craze, but I've grown to respect it more, and every time I tried to read it as Christian Bale, I kept slipping back into Kevin. Also, I believe that Kevin's I Am Batman line is superior to Christian Bale's I Am Batman line, because not only does he say, I'm Batman, he says, I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman. And he says it at a point that motivates him to get through what he needs. He's not just saying it to introduce himself, because they know who he is.
Jacob Barnes, final argument.
I'm going to keep this pretty simple, but I think in 50 years from now, when people ask you some of the greatest cinema work of all time, they will look at Christopher Nolan. I mean, he's just got iconic movies that I won't even mention. But specifically with The Dark Knight Rises, it's one of the biggest trilogies, especially of the decade, the 2010s. And I think it'll stick for a long time, and I think it'll be more memorable in the majority of people's minds compared to Kevin Conroy's Batman.
That's going to do it for this week's Nerd Showdown. This week, I believe the winner is, and this is long in a series of long, close ones, I feel like. But as much as I disagree with this decision, this week, I think just on zeal, Christian Bale. Each week we have a Twitter poll regarding the topic at hand, and our game master, James, keeps an eye on it all week. James, how did the fans vote?
Alrighty, so we had 27 votes this week, and in a landslide of 22 votes to 5, Christian Bale also won the public poll, which...
Big shocker there.
Kevin Conroy should have won.
You can head to Nerd Central's Twitter to vote for next week's poll. Nerdmageddon is coming up next. You can also check out Bearcat Update at 6 p.m. We'll see you next week on Nerd Central.
Vice. The Favorite. Roma. Green Book.
Do we have to redo that one?
Oh, come on, Green Book is gonna win.
Green Book. Bohemian Rhapsody. Black Panther. Black's Klan. I said Black Klansman. Black Klansman. Be sure to check out the next week's show for our full coverage of the event. Now let's talk about the news of the week. Black Klansman. Be sure to check out next week's show for our full coverage of the event. Now, let's talk about the news of the week. A Star is Born.